been peed on before? Oh my god, yum.
Hey, did you ever want to hold a terry fold? I got one right here. Grab a terry flap, squeeze it. Grab it, squeeze it, tug on my terry flap. Hey, I want to take you to the terry fold dance. Want to come with me? You can grab my holdy folds. Squeeze them tight. You son of a bitch. Suck my holdy flappy folds. Lick my flappy foldy holes. My terry flaps in your mouth. Suck my flaps, you piece of shit.
I think that, women have said to me that being an admirer of Howard Stern is to be in a line with the endorsement of pornography and the sorts of, line pushing, obscene sketches that they can do on the Howard Stern show. The prank calls I really admire. My sense of Howard is, and I've watched him closely, I know he has always liked Marilyn, but I have thought that he could. Howard Stern is an amazing interviewer, and he is, I think, the most impressive interviewer. Who, if you watch when he does an interview, and you can tell that he has looked, done his background checks, and the questions he comes up with are brilliant, and the discussions that he has with various people are brilliant. And I've always thought that while I wouldn't call his interviews with Marilyn bad, I would say that Marilyn's very intelligent, and more intelligent conversations possibly could have had. But that's not to diss. They call him the king of all media in New York, and I studied his movie, learning that Jenna was in it, Howard Stern's Private Parts, but also in Penn and Teller. There's an episode that addresses censorship issues and free speech, and the FCA fining Howard Stern for some of his on-air content being in violation of standard codes. And he says, there's a woman having a go at heckling at him, and he says, honey, this is the United States of America. We have freedoms that you can't possibly imagine. And I love what he's done. From Australia, watching this story, you don't get as much as you could, but of the evolution and eventual shift to Sirius, which is satellite radio that's privatized. He was the king of terrestrial radio, sorry, at the time. So he was the best of the best at the time, and it was it's a move that proved, going to Sirius, it's a move that proved that the convictions that Howard Stern always stood by, despite censorship threats and fines and things like that, because really not everybody has a Sirius satellite radio. So I think that you have to pay subscription, and you have to buy the radio unit, and then you can tune into the show. So the move was a move where there'd be a drop in the number of fan base potentially. But what Howard also knows is that there is such a thing as a difference between a fan and a listener. And so he said it when he's addressed creation versus evolution. He goes, if you don't understand evolution, if you believe in evolution, don't fucking listen to me. Don't listen to this channel. You're a waste of time. And that's good. Like, I admire that, because I mean, it shows, you know, he gets called. He never really. I wouldn't consider him to. It's that anti porno when George Michael sings. You know, what do you consider pornography? In one of his songs, and Howard pushes limits on the for the televised episodes of his show. All that they can't show is an orifice penetration or a climax, like an ejaculation or an insertion or anything like that. They can't show it. You could hear it, but it couldn't be shown on their televised episodes. But he's a fantastic interviewer. My journalism studies, I chose in school to talk about censorship because I would say I was asking, what do we have in Australia? Do we have, is it stated freedom of speech? And what you find is right to expression, which is it doesn't specify what form of expression. I do still feel that even the best of the best of what mainstream media has to offer would be a lot better. It could be a lot better, and could stand to benefit the populace if its content were sort of like what Howard does. I often wonder if, in Howard's mind, because of how much effort he does and time he does take to look into the background of people he's going to interview, and he's just a gun when he's interviewing. Like, he can't, you don't see him think, oh fuck, what's my next question? You know, it's just hammer, and the interviews are brilliant. So I like him. I like what he stands for. My assignment, I sampled a speech by Woody Harrelson out of The People vs. Larry Flint. And that's a movie that, once again, people pounced on me going, oh, look, this is just because he's the guy that peddles smut penthouse magazines. But what it was about was the principle of how legislators for a society, you know, already Playboy, by the way, and Playboy magazine and some other magazine were already in good circulation well before Larry Flint's magazine, and they weren't getting banned. But Larry Flint encountered problems with bannings, and he's saying things in court like, if a kid, because one question they brought up is, well, what if a kid goes into a store and grabs one of these magazines? I was fortunate enough not to have to, because I was made to go on a police camp as a kid, and I didn't quite work out what I'd done that had me counted as a juvenile delinquent. But there was a house in Monash, Cowdery place near the Monash shops, and Cowdery Street. And there were peach trees in the backyard that the dead ones, dried up ones, left stones on the grass, and we would play badminton. Sometimes Mum and me would play badminton. But on my own, I had some pleasure just hitting the stones over a fence of the next door neighbors. Occasionally, I heard a bit of a kaplunk noise, but the neighbor would then come to the door with a pot plant filled up with all of the peach stones, and he'd look at me, and he didn't look angry. He didn't say a word. He didn't tell me off. He just handed me back the the pot full of stones, and I was thinking, fuck, like I almost invited him to play a game of badminton with me then and there, but he kind of walked away, and so I went back out to the yard and just resumed hitting the peach stones again. And anyway, it turned out I'd damaged his pergola. I was told I didn't get to see what the damage was, and the hailstones destroy pergolas. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how old peach stones could seeds. They just kind of make a thud sound, but I wasn't even aiming to hit his property. I was trying to hit them as far as I could. But I was sent to a police camp for that, and it was called Project Soul. They take you caving, abseiling, and on long hikes. And there's a pit toilet that I didn't want to. I tried to not shit for as long as possible, because you look in the pit toilet, and if a beam of sunlight goes through the crack in the door, you can just see, a couple of meters drop, and then this mountain of mix of the shit of, the shit of 1,000 popes, so to speak. I'd piss in bushes, but actually I even decided I would not pee. It's like, well, this would be a 72-hour camp. Yeah, I'll try it. I can hold on for 72. But then, yeah, I'd pee outside, but that pit toilet disgusted me. And I was mentioned in an ABC News broadcast by a reporter, Donna. She was sent as to write an article about the police camp, but the other young people that were there, and I won't mention any of their names, but they were there for things like vandalizing stores, theft, shoplifting, and so I ended up getting taught, hanging with the peers on that camp. I was taught more about delinquent things. Like, I got taught how to make smoke bombs by getting a ping pong ball, wrapping it up. You get a ping pong ball and hold a pen against any area of the ping pong ball, and then wrap alfoil around the whole thing, and part of the stem of the pen. And then what you do is you light the alfoil at the opposite polar end of the wrapped up ping pong ball, and the ping pong ball on the inside of the foil. Essentially, the heat transfers through the foil and incinerates the ping pong ball into smoke, which comes out of the stem from the pen. And so I got taught. While I did abseil, and I was terrified because it was over a cliff with running water and rocks, and the amount of trust that you have to put into the people there that are giving you these harnesses, because I didn't want to do it. They nicknamed me Casper because when we abseiled into a cave, and I had to wear overalls, and I was too light-weighted to be able to freely drop through the it was a ground level drop into a cave, and everyone did it really easily except for me, just trying to feed rope to lower yourself, and I was left floating for a while, and I got laughed at and called Casper. A police officer named Newhouse, Steve Newhouse, ran the program from the policing aspect, but I would sit in the lap of this Chicky Donna, and then she said I was cute on the radio, and so I thought that was pretty hot. But I didn't have pubes then, but I could dream dreams. But I also met a peer there who was close to someone who owned a news agency, and in news agencies, if magazines aren't sold, the news agent owner has to just cut off proof of the magazine's name, issue, and the date. So, and then they can send it back essentially to get refunded. So what that meant was that this guy would get the rest of the magazine. So it's only you still get some of the front cover even. It's otherwise the exact full magazine. It's just that it's late. And he would regularly drop supplies of pornographic magazines behind my backyard fence. So I learned my lesson in that I wasn't hitting. I'd walk past the trees. I wasn't interested actually anymore in the hitting peach stones because I was interested in looking into these new pornographic magazines. And yeah, I thought that was very impressive. And I guess in a way it I felt under the thumb and ordered when I had to go to church, and this is some years. Well, I had some, yeah. No, I did not. Sorry, I did know church. This was when I was in the community of a uniting church. But yeah, I do think I think that Christian initiatives, especially when they are talking about sexuality, if they address sexuality in any way, because they chip away at your sense of how, when and where it's appropriate to say to someone, well, coming from you, this sounds like this is pretty steep talk. Like, what's an example? Suppose Freddy Krueger was real and he just goes around slashing up people, and then he comes up to you saying, "Oh, can you help me? I've, my finger's bleeding. It got pricked by a splinter of wood." And be like, "You're fucking Freddy Krueger. What? Fuck off! Like, who's going to help you with that?" And the church take that from you, like that right to talk that way, because their story of human origins is about incestuous sexual acts and sex between direct blood siblings being the necessary way to save the future of the species and race. So it's like right from the start, if they want you to take their Bible with any fair and decent consideration, and then they move to also try and get you to sign a contract to say that you won't have sex until you're married. It's like, well, fucking hell! Like, you really are going too far on this front. It's bad enough you're trying to get us to believe in a garden of inbreeding, and now you want us to sign contracts that we won't have sex until we're married. It's yeah, that's why I think that they're vile minds, Christians, and the fact that they think this is what they have to do for the sake of eternity. Why do you want it? Like, I wouldn't want eternity if and go, oh, cool, I can be inbred forever. I mean, and what if they're completely wrong? They talk about Pascal's wager and go, well, if it's true, if it's not true, and I believe in it, then I've lost nothing. Well, bullshit. You've lost actually a lot of integrity for one point, and character and potential to be wise. Believing that you're inbred and believing in the crucifixion and the murder of that gentleman, the Nazarene, and then because no one could say anything to suggest that King Herod had authorized an unjust execution, or King Herod would have executed them. So this is both a time of a horrible political and police state equivalent in the first century Palestine, but it's also a time where the perpetuation of mythology was so profound that it makes it hard to actually say that some of what's written, much in the Bible, it could even be fairly entered into the category of historical literature. So yeah, Christopher Hitchens wisely goes, this is a mix of it's a mix of historic elements and myth. I think I've tried to build on what Hitch would. I haven't seen. I mean, I consider him to be the greatest of the four horsemen of atheism. He seemed to have been sort of a mentor to Sam Harris, even though they were all a team. Yeah, no, so and he would say, well, what if it's so Pascal's wages also, because Pascal's wages then goes, but if it's true and I don't believe in it, then I'll lose everything because I'll go to hell. I was like, well, no, if Christianity is true and not true, but Judaism is, then all the Christians and the Muslims will all go to hell. Or if Islam is true, then all the Jews and Judaists and all the Christians will go to hell. If Christianity is true, then all the Judaists and Muslims will go to hell. So if you pick one of the three most prominent Abrahamic faiths, you have at best a 33% chance of going to heaven, even if you do everything right by that church. So Pascal's wager is a load of shit. Blaise Pascal. Blaise. Blaise is a term for when shit's burning out and his reasoning is very burnt out in that Pascal's wager. What if there's a God and no afterlife? What if there's an afterlife and no God? What if there's an afterlife with a committee of 10 gods? What if there's an afterlife but you're on your own and can't interact with anyone? What if there's so enmeshed in the preachings of the political structure of an afterlife, which by definition you would think we would be, in fairness and in respect to the term afterlife. It's like say you have an older relative that's been cremated. You don't say, well, next Tuesday I'm ashes. I'm going to turn to ashes so I can go and say hello, and it'd be just like the good old days. I'm going to set myself on fire now. You don't do that because you know that you're not going to actually have. You're not going to have that. If you turn yourself into ashes and have a cremated relative, you're not going to meet and catch up and have a chat and chin wag like you used to, just because you're both in the form of ashes, as best as we can tell. So agnostic means it's beyond my limits. What I've found as an atheist is that I'm open to talk about going, well, there's probably nothing possibly, but I'm wary because I think take to the streets, for instance, and walk around debunking people and saying, oh, there's nothing, and then it reminds me of being pressed to be a missionary for the church in some way, and what I think that similarity is trying to use language to account for phenomenology that it's just not possible to do. So an agnostic can still be it can be spiritual to go, well, this has to be beyond our limits to know what this means, the afterlife. It's like and the greed in religious people to think that they have a PhD in telling you what the political infrastructure of the afterlife is. Why is it heaven or hell? What if it's what if the afterlife is like levels world 1 through 6 and the castle from Super Mario, and there's no God, or there's one God, or there's Bowser and one God fighting Bowser or sending Bowser to fight you. What if the next life is even worse than this life? What if it's man today, worm tomorrow, but the next day a fly? Life keeps steadily going on. What if that's all it is? So yeah, true agnosticism is not sitting on the fence pleading ignorance and saying I don't know. It's actually quite a principled initiative to say the phenomenology of what you're talking about is beyond the limits of what we can know. And that's something that's popular usage has changed it so that it gets mocked and made fun of. But the original person who coined the term, Thomas Henry Huxley, did so because he was criticizing a Christian fanatic sect called the Gnostics, Gnostics, and they were convinced that they knew you could say that things like the Bible is the perfect word of God with complete certainty, or God exists and Jesus is his son with complete certainty, and this could all be known with complete certainty. And so it was originally in response to that movement that, and once again, the prefix a means without, so without certainty. So agnosticism was to say that there is no, you can't have that certainty. We don't know, and we can't know. And that's the other thing. Saying you're an agnostic doesn't say whether you're a theist or an atheist. You can be either, and because theism and atheism deal with the presence or absence of belief. So an atheist is absent in belief in God, and a theist is present with belief in God. But both can say that any knowledge of these theologies are beyond the limits of what can be known. But a person could say, I can't know if God exists, like Maimonides, an ancient sage to the Jewish people, I think, Maimonides. Yeah, so he would say that he can't know, but he believes anyway. So that's a agnostic theist. Or you could say, it can't be known, and I don't believe, and that's an agnostic atheist. So it's not true that the dividing line is a three-way one, where you go, do you believe in religion? Do you not believe in religion? Or are you not sure, like you don't know? You either you're a theist or an atheist. You cannot be both, and you are one or the other, and you are born atheist. You may not be born an informed atheist, but you certainly don't stop breastfeeding from your parents, religious parents, just to turn 3 and start running around saying, yeah, let's go invade the city and kill every man, woman, and child, but keep any virgins we find alive for ourselves. Hallelujah, the Bible's so great. You know, kids don't do that. Their parents teach them. But they don't teach them to be in a state of unbelief. That's as ridiculous as like saying that they teach them to turn from zygote to, fetus. It's just negative atheism. It's just the plain definition, the most plain definition of atheism possible is what everyone is born. A neighbor recently said everyone's born Muslim, and I'm like, well, what's justify that? And there isn't a justification for that, because all you have to say is, well, how do you how do you get born knowing not only the word Muslim but various aspects of the Islamic philosophy, and it's just not possible. If that were the case, we wouldn't have children's stories and things like that, and have kids, showing their age with their fingers and encouraging them and the ability to count that they're at their level of growth. So I think religious people, given they have missionaries in their organizations and things like that, will certainly admit that you can't just sprout the substance and the phenomenology of their agendas and their idealism. There'd be no need for missionaries if that were the case. So yeah, you may not like it, but you were born an atheist.
Peed on before? Oh my god, yum.
Hey, did you ever want to hold a terry fold? I got one right here. Grab a terry flap, squeeze it, grab it, squeeze and tug on my terry flap. Hey, I want to take you to the terry fold dance. Want to come with me? You can grab my holy folds, squeeze them tight. You son of a bitch, suck my holy flappy folds, lick my flappy foldy holes. My terry flaps in your mouth, suck my flaps, you piece of shit.
Peed on before? Oh my god, yum.
Hey, did you ever want to hold a terry fold? I got one right here. Grab a terry flap, squeeze it, grab it, squeeze and tug on my terry flap. Hey, I want to take you to the terry fold dance. Want to come with me? You can grab my holy folds, squeeze them tight. You son of a bitch, suck my holy flappy folds, lick my flappy foldy holes. My terry flaps in your mouth, suck my flaps, you piece of shit.
Yeah, sorry, I just checked how tangential I was. Yeah, no, the point as I saw it with censorship, the idea is that if a society, Woody Harrelson, as Larry Flint would say when he got told, if a kid, he said if a kid goes and gets hold of a Budweiser of beer, and he's underage, the courts don't ban Budweiser throughout the state. It's like a progression from how the Marquis de Sade's books would be rounded up and burnt in public by Napoleon Bonaparte. And what was ironic about that was that de Sade did not like war and mocked religion quite well, his books are disgusting, largely. The dialogue between a priest and a dying man really is the only one that doesn't have heinous content, literally, but speaking. But Woody Harrelson said, if you don't like Hustler magazine, don't buy it and don't read it. And it's the idea that haters are still attracting to this content. But if you tell society that, no, you can't have this is banned, you'd have to establish some principle of legally to justify it. And if that was that wall was put up, no matter what it was, like um, uh, the Christians, I mean, they have, and Flint would, when Larry Flint had his strip club, he would say, you know, Christians are welcome in here too, but they were out the front with picket signs and praying and swearing and mocking him. And what he understands is very well is this principle that, yeah, you really are robbing yourself in the end if you put up a legislative wall to say that this such and such a content is. I mean, I'm against pedophilia, obviously. So, but in terms of, well, we have our laws concerning that, like it's a child pornography is obviously violating a tremendous number of laws that relate to and pertain to the definition of child under the law, and that's absolutely fair enough. Even though you find pedophiles standing some holding their guns and saying in jail that they genuinely love these children. And, you know, I've wondered if the Garden of Eden story is what embedded the idea in their heads in the first place, the implications of it. But keeping in tune with legal definitions of child, teen, adult, I do believe that it's wrong to censor anything, because and that it's right and good for networks to generate content that caters to tastes, because individuals have the option for selection. I think that for people, if the person is a hater so much that they're just and I do it when I watch documentaries on the Westboro Baptist Church. I don't watch you know, like Louis Theroux, go and interview them because I'm interested in becoming a member of the Westboro Baptist Church. I'd be interested in prank calling them, or debating the Bible with them, against them. But material for religions that I'm against, I believe, should be shown on networks so that those who do want to access that content can. So that's what I mean. I don't imagine what the rule would be, legally speaking. That could be defined in principle, that wouldn't fuck everything for everyone potentially, if it were put in place, because it would then mean that, well, now due to this, if they called it, you know, Proposition 35, Proposition whatever, and now because it was a bit like this with COVID-19. Due to COVID-19 now, you can't watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Batman, or you can't watch Atheist Debate, but you can watch Sarah Palin. And anyway, yeah, so that's what's illustrated by the People vs. Larry Flint, is that it's actually it was the freedoms of the very people that were criticizing him and hating him that he fought to defend. they just tune out if you hate someone and their content. Tune out and don't watch it. But it doesn't mean it should be banned or outlawed. That's to retrogress. You've got in Desade's day, you had Napoleon Bonaparte ordering wars, leading wars and killing foreigners. But Marquis de Sade gets locked up in an asylum just because he could write well and wrote in mockery of the church. But his mockeries are very clever because it's once again drawing your attention to what the Bible is actually saying. The Bible has more heinous content in it than just about any book on earth. It's filth. It's absolute filth. So that it's an insult to our intelligence, and I believe, I'm not saying the Bible shouldn't exist, and even though I burn them or snort drugs off them, I'm not saying Bibles shouldn't exist. I'm saying if you try and approach me and say, oh, on threat of eternal torture, I need you to accept these beliefs, you will lose a debate, and you can pick your avenue of debate, and you'll lose. And that's all. Because yeah. If you believe in giving thanks and calling the image of God the concealment of rampant incest, then your logic's not going to be all that impressive anyway, and someone like me on a bad day will seem like some wise guy to you, and that's not my fault. I think probably all kids that have siblings do engage in a sibling rivalry, but I know what it means to be a step kid, and to know that it's not inappropriate to be aware of attractiveness, potentially attractive qualities in your siblings, but I understand the mental discipline of respecting your step siblings as equal to family as well. So yeah, and that's the very antithesis of Genesis incest, Garden of Eden breeding bullshit, and yeah. See if I get to upload this, if I'm getting hacked by Roger Tunnel, Gary Cairns more, because he started more than a tussle with me. But what his behavior, his and Gary's behavior, it's so reminiscent of the little girls going let a couple little fucking girls, or if they want to be mature about it, they manifest the attitude of an absolute whore, morally speaking, in terms of how there's always a sales pitch tethered to what they consider to be a moral tap on the shoulder. So yeah, I've already explained why I can get why the Freemasons think Freemasonry is cooler than Christianity. But they're both in the bin of theology. Theology is the study of nothing. It was said by Thomas Paine. And so it's the study of nothing, because there's no phenomenon for them to study. They're bullshit, and the Freemasons are bullshit because what they've done is they've pulled off secrecy and held this secrecy stance better than say the Church of Scientology, but they I think have worse, better hidden, protected, and more powerful pedos than the Catholic Church. Their religion's just as easy. If you can debunk with argument the Abrahamics, the three, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, then you can debunk Freemasonry. It's some attempt to it's a claim to unify them, but that's really, again, the salesman trying to say we can tend to you all, and that's what, when they say we know what matters and everybody needs capital chemist. I think of both of those slogans as well, I was never proud of them when I worked for them. And that's because, they can, as a salesman can say more than is necessary or appropriate, but B, a lot goes on. There's a lot I could say about what is not said that a person might think about, like with the full prescription subsidies, and how many patients think that it's the capital chemist shop that's paying for the rest of their medicines, and how often did I hear pharmacists say, "Oh, this," so the Health Insurance Commission actually pays for the rest of this medicine, so the government's doing that for you, not us. But they'll still credit as a private sector institution, and go, well, it's not that I didn't. It's not that I, explicitly said I'm taking credit, but at the same time, they don't try and think about what it has not occurred to someone that's been served, and that's what I think serving should involve, particularly in anything that's about health. You've got to consider that as you are sick, you're even more vulnerable than the healthy person going to the Labour Club or something, or Woolworths. So while they get on their podium and Gary and Roger talk about how being a member of a pharmacy staff team is a greater moral challenge and privilege compared to being a retail Woolworths, they mock them, but they're paid the exact same hourly award wage, while putting more moral pressure on the staff, and it isn't really a higher calling. It's higher in terms of like, if I could have crystal meth, higher, but it's not a higher calling in terms of moral superiority. Woolworths have got them beat there, because Woolworths say they've got fresh ideas for you, and Woolworths make efforts to they make more efforts, I think, to find more affordable product, and they don't say everyone needs us. That's to imply to the sensitive person, can I go to can I go to it? Am I bad if I go to a different chemist? You know, and capital chemists play on that nerve, which many people, sensitive people in the community will have, and will have exacerbated if they're in a state of sickness. So yeah, what next? What's that? They could have the slogan, capital chemist, Catholic missionaries in Africa telling AIDS-ridden communities in Africa that while AIDS is bad, we know what matters and condoms are worse. Thanks for tuning in to Capital Chemist. You know, they fucking might as well. I want to say everybody needs them. About Africa, Bangladesh.
Peed on before? Oh my god, yum.
Hey, did you ever want to hold a terry fold? I got one right here. Grab a terry flap, squeeze it. Grab it, squeeze it, tug on my terry flap. Hey, I want to take you to the terry fold dance. Want to come with me? You can grab my holdy folds. Squeeze them tight. You son of a bitch. Suck my holdy flappy folds. Lick my flappy foldy holes. My terry flaps in your mouth. Suck my flaps, you piece of shit.
As a friend of mine says, you know, the word female still has male in it. Woman still has man in it. I remember in school we studied partially a book called Her Story, which is by title a digression from his history, but from a woman's perspective. And you know, in the Bible, woman, firstly, she only existed because Adam felt lonely. B, it cost Adam one of his ribs that she had to get created out of. C, she's the one that ate the apple, and everyone was born in original sin because of a woman, so it's a woman's fault. And so the book of Deuteronomy says, you know, if a woman doesn't scream loud enough when being raped, she should get stoned to death as the accessory to her own defilement. So that's so fucked up. It's, I mean, what if she was gagged? You know, it's like going, well, it's such a bother for a raped woman to scream out for help. How dare she? And she better be loud, because we're not going to be on the lookout for women's rights. And why I don't think there is much in the way of, or why women's rights could be better. It is countering damage that is certainly traceable to the Bible and the biblical narrative. Killing Jesus, who I suspect had effeminate qualities himself, is then taught to have been the way to redeem mankind from a woman's fault. So with it goes back to creation, really, and what's entailed by creation according to the Bible. That a woman doesn't really, by definition, deserve to have any rights. And so the lobbyists who try to say that schools shouldn't be teaching evolution in science unless they're also going to teach creation. Should they also teach the religion that said that the earth rests on the back of a giant turtle? You can see that sadly it's lowered the quality by which science could be proudly and spiritually more better talked about by teachers, because, you know, with the daily routine of the alpha male hunting and gathering, it could only have been the women who cared who were the primary caregivers and educators of the young until they were old enough to hunt and gather themselves. So, and then what credit or mention do they get for that? Well, not much yet, because there's still too much going on with the religious right wanting to contest without any talk on their behalf as to why they think their religion constitutes any kind of equivalent or appropriate content for a science class. It doesn't. A mythology class, sure, teach it there, but it's not. It is not. It's not the matter of science. It's not what scientific method was not applied to work out that Eve was created out of a rib. Their best. I'm not sure what they think. That probably the best proof that women can take a lot of boners is maybe the only proof that anyone could offer to say, well, yeah, the first woman must have been created from a rib. That's the only thing I could think of that they could say, or try to say. But that women are given worse than second-class citizen standing, and even it affects the way that conception was understood prior to the discovery of the ovum and the egg and sperm and biological conception in sexual reproduction. Women weren't actually thought to be contributing to the makeup of the offspring. They were just seen to be like the carry bag or the incubator, not a equal co-contributor and co-creator of the new life. In biblical times, the analogy was a farmer. So impregnating a woman was analogously viewed to when a farmer sprinkles seed on some soil and dirt, and the woman was like the dirt, which I think is absurd, given that you do see in offspring qualities that are aesthetically apparent that are hard to dismiss as being comparable to this or that, like the mother or the father in this or that respect. But that went on too. So the tragedy is that even if this was humanity's history, we should be wanting to progress from it. But instead we have religious proselytizers just wanting to go out and make you agree to join their bandwagon and say, oh no, but this story's true, this story's true. It's like, and then the unbelievers also will focus their activists on, no, it's not true, no, it's not true. And some, no, it's not true and it's harmful. But I think the reality is, why aren't religious people thinking, well, this is something we should all be wanting to progress from? But they tend to not dead say anything against their Bible. But then how much of their time and energy is invested in trying to say God is good all the time, God is good. Look up Isaiah 45:7. What does God say to you right there, Christian? He says, I, the Lord, create all evil and woe. I, the Lord, do all these things. So that's not God is good all the time, God is good. That's, if you have a relative with cancer, your God created it to give you woe and to give your loved ones cancers. That's the other annoying thing about Bible bashes, is that they really don't read their own book. It's like, if you want to hit me with it or try to hit me up,